Hi everybody, it's Lisa from English 10. I wanted to make sure that you could maximize my support with some writing skills. So I made this video. I hope that you're able to take advantage of it. My hope is that you can spend some time doing this video. It might take about 15 minutes, certainly, or less, but it won't really add work to your work schedule this week. This is going to be something that you're going to work on for English 10 or Assignment 10's literature assignment that's due this week, but I'm going to give you an example of how to do that. So here is a writing skills introduction. So we're going to talk about power writing. It's a systematic formula that really helps build clear, concise paragraphs. Every sentence has a purpose. And so I want to make sure that you follow this formula so that we are working smarter, not harder. So here's the formula. It's a 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. And I'm going to explain what that means, but just sort of commit to your memory. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. Okay, so the number one sentence, which there's only one of, is the topic sentence. I want you to borrow words directly from the prompt. It should include details like the author and the title of the piece that you're referring to, and it's your argument. This is literally your point of view and what you have to prove. Okay, so make sure you do borrow words from the prompt because that's what I'm looking for and that's what you have to respond to, so you might as well make it part of your topic sentence. There are 3 number 2 sentences in a really solid, well-developed paragraph. So these number 2 sentences directly support the number 1 sentence. That should actually be singular because you only have one number 1 sentence. So it directly supports the number 1 sentence. And I want you to do all of them in the pre-writing stage. Right after you write your number 1 sentence, I want you to write your number 2 sentences. Then you'll do number 3 sentences. These will directly support the number 2 sentence right above the number 3 sentence. These sentences are your detail sentences. It's a perfect place to put a line or a statement from your research, from your book, from your poem. It directly supports your number 2 argument. So the prompt for this example is, what is the tone of the poem Annabel Lee? How does the author want you to feel? So you're going to develop a number 1 sentence. Brainstorm ideas on tone or feeling. If you weren't sure what tone is, I explained it a little bit more by using the words feelings. When you think about a scary movie, sometimes you're scared and no one has said anything or nothing has happened yet, but it will get dark, the music will change. You know that you are anticipating something is going to happen, right? And that's because the producer or the director has decided to make some decisions that set a tone and want you to feel a certain way. Authors do the same thing. They just use words to do it. So I want you to brainstorm some ideas on tones or feelings. Now, I'm familiar with Annabel Lee. It's in your course, so many of you should be familiar. It's around Assignment 5. It's a wonderful poem by Edgar Allan Poe. So the feelings that I had, or the tone, it felt creepy, feels a little sad. It's kind of romantic. Actually, it's sort of terribly romantic. It's a little eerie. So those are the feelings that came up in me. So that's what I brainstormed. Then I'm going to develop a topic sentence that borrows the words from the prompt. And you always should include the author and the title of the piece. Always. Because why wouldn't you? So now my topic sentence, if you always do this and include the author and the piece, the tone, borrowing that word from the prompt, of Edgar Allan Poe's poem, Annabel Lee, is eerily romantic. Honestly, when I started to brainstorm, I couldn't decide between either of those, so I picked both. It's eerily romantic, and I actually think that's a perfect way to describe the tone of that poem. Now we're going to move on to the number 2 sentences to support an eeriness, a romanticness, or both. So number 2 sentences. Write why I think the poem is eerily romantic. Only focus sentences on this argument alone. The poem, so here's my first number 2 sentence. The poem is romantic and opens explaining Annabelle's love for the poem's narrator. The tone becomes off-putting when Poe introduces heavenly beings who are not the stereotypical sweet angels that one might expect. So that, I don't know if off-putting is the word that I'm ultimately going to use, but I sort of was reading it, and then when I got to the part about the heavenly beings, it really sort of threw me off a bit. It was off-putting, because you don't expect angels in literature to be something that isn't sort of stereotypical, sweet, loving, protective, all those things. So it was off-putting for me. And then the third number 2 sentence that supports the number 1 sentence about the poem being eerily romantic is that Poe wants his readers to feel the authenticness of the character's love. I think he really wants us to feel that way. He wants the narrator of the poem is trying to convince the readers about how authentic or genuine the love is. And that's romantic. So all 3 of those support the number 1 sentence. So now we go on to number 3 sentences. You're going to look at the number 2 sentence and then support it with evidence. So the first number 2 sentence I wrote was, the poem is romantic and opens explaining Annabel Lee's love for the poem's narrator. Now I'm going to find evidence from the book that supports that. Poe writes, and this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. Oh, I need a quotation mark right there. And then, of course, there's my parenthetical citation. In a poem, you got to make sure that it's clear what the poem you're referring to is, which this will be 2 sentences ahead where I write about Annabel Lee, so it's clear. I mentioned Poe again. So I just need to write the lines that appeared on. So really what I'm missing is a quotation mark right here, and that's a perfect parenthetical citation. Here's my other number 2. The tone becomes off-putting when Poe introduces heavenly beings who are not stereotypical sweet angels one might expect. Oh, sorry. So Poe references, so here's the number 3 sentence, the detail. Poe references winged seraphs becoming jealous and ultimately killing Annabel Lee. This is not a direct quote, but it's clear when you read the poem a couple of times this is what's happened. So I'm using his words, winged seraphs, which is fine, and because I'm referencing this here, but I don't want to keep doing a bunch of quotes, like skip a line, now it's a quote, skip a line, now it's a quote, skip a line, now it's a quote. So, and I might even be using Poe a little bit too much too. I could say the author. I don't want to say he, because we assume that the narrator is a he. So this number 3, Poe references winged seraphs, that's angels or some sort of heavenly beings, becoming jealous and ultimately killing Annabel Lee. Well, most of us don't think of angels becoming jealous, so therefore, or even killing. So therefore, I think that really supports that directly. The third, number 2, sentence that I wrote was, Poe wants his readers to feel the authenticness of the character's love. And instead of writing Poe here again, look at Poe writes, Poe references, Poe wants, I wrote, but our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, ... because he continues to go on about their love. And then I write, Poe writes to show the genuine love of his characters shared. And those are the lines that that's in. So let's see what this looks like together. So far we have the tone of Edgar Allan Poe's poem, Annabel Lee, is eerily romantic. That's my number one sentence. The poem is enchanting. Oh, I looked up romantic. It's hard to find a word that means romantic. Some of them are just not quite right. But I like enchanting because it sort of feels a little fairy tale-esque. The poem is enchanting and opens explaining Annabel Lee's love for the poem's narrator. Poe writes, "And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me." That's a number 3 sentence. Now number 2. The tone becomes off-putting when Poe introduces heavenly beings who are not just the stereotypical sweet angels one might expect. Now I need a number 3. Poe references winged seraphs becoming jealous and ultimately killing Annabel Lee. Now I need another number 2. Poe wants his readers to feel the authenticness of his character's love. Now I need a number 3. But our love was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we. Poe writes to show the genuine love his characters shared. So you'll see this has a structure of a 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. All the 2's support the 1, and the 3's support the sentence, the 2, right before them. So now I just want to restate the number 1 in different words. So here is my original number 1. The tone of Edgar Allan Poe's poem, Annabel Lee, is eerily romantic. I'm going to restate that in different words and in a different order, change my sentence structure. Annabel Lee, by Edgar Allan Poe, ooh, that should have a comma, is a poem with a strange oh wow, look at, I really need to rewrite that. Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe is a poem with a strange romantic, yep, I need to get rid of that. So I'm going to say Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe is a strange romantic poem that leaves readers feeling uneasy and sad. So even now, and I went through this, but even now I know as I read it, but I'm reading it piece by piece, I can see, oh yeah, that doesn't quite sound right. And this would be easy for me to fix if I wasn't doing this video. So this is now going to say, Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe, comma, is a strange romantic poem that leaves readers feeling uneasy and sad. So now here's my final paragraph. The tone of Edgar Allan Poe's poem, Annabel Lee, is eerily romantic. The poem is enchanting and opens explaining Annabel Lee's love for the poem's narrator. Poe writes, "And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me." The tone becomes off-putting when Poe introduces heavenly beings who are not the stereotypical sweet angels one might expect. Poe references winged seraphs becoming jealous and ultimately killing Annabel Lee. Poe wants his readers to feel the authenticness of his character's love. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we. Poe writes to show the genuine love his characters shared. Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe is a strange romantic poem that leaves readers feeling uneasy and sad. I would love for you to look at this week's literature assignment. Email me your number 1 and number 2 sentences by Wednesday afternoon. Let me check that they support your number 1 sentence. Then you can do your number 3 sentences and your conclusion by Thursday afternoon. I would love for you to do this just to see if this really helps you focus and not be quite so overwhelmed when you write. This week you have to write a paragraph, so let's make that happen. How does this sound?